Awesome.
All right, welcome to the first podcast episode of Redhawks Report podcast. I'm Marcus. I'm behind the channel, and I'm the voice that you've been hearing in other videos. With me on this podcast, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Braden Doe. I'm your glorified North American couch scout, avid Habs fan, and very new Malmö Redhawks fan. I'm really excited to be starting this.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you with me as a co-host. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our plan, we can announce that already. Our plan is to have a regular episode every week discussing games and stuff, and he is going to watch from North America as much as he can as well, and give his input on the games and from his perspective, give comments on things, and. All right, let's get started. So, difference between North American and European leagues. Give a brief summary of how the leagues are set up in North America.
Well, the difference, especially with player development here versus in North America versus in Europe, is the expectations. Like here in North America, for the most part, any CHL team, you're seeing a lot of persuasion, I guess. I don't know if it's even allowed, but you see a lot of things, a lot of players being put in roles that they'll be put in at the NHL level, even if it's a detriment to their junior club.
Right.
And in Europe, as far as I've been able to tell, it's more team. Like it's more like the expectation is for you to be a part of the team, even if that means leaving points on the table, even if that means not playing the role that you may play in the pro game. And basically, when you have a player loaned to Europe or developing in Europe or is a draft eligible coming out of Europe, like he's not there just to develop. He's there to win. He's there to be a part of Malmo or Frölunda or whatever club they're on. So it's a much more difficult place to be developing, but it's also a much better place to be learning how to be a pro.
Right, yeah. So you were talking about the junior leagues there, the CHL junior leagues in Canada. In Europe, CHL is the Champions Hockey League, so I just want to specify that for North American viewers specifically, is that there's two CHLs. So we were talking about the junior leagues there.
OHL, QMJHL.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then go over the structure and because I know a little bit, but I don't know the whole thing. Like there are 32 franchises in the NHL, right? But how are there's owners of each franchise, and then they decide, and it's very business focused, right? It's set up as a business rather than a sports league per se, at least from Europeans' point of view. Would you agree with that? That it's more focused on profit?
If you look, like a very easy example to use is if you look at the Washington Capitals. Like there was a time maybe a year ago that selling off some of their older talent might have been a smart move, right? But the fans are showing up night in, night out to watch Alex Ovechkin play. The fans are showing up night in, night out to watch him chase Gretzky's goal record. And because of that, like, even if it means leaving a cup run on the table, sorry, Washington fans, even if it means leaving a cup run on the table to see Ovechkin do what he's doing, the ownership and the management are totally down to fill up that arena for that, And I do think that, like, that does make the NHL more business than hockey sometimes.
Mm.
You know, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to win, and it's an extremely competitive league. It's the best league in the world. But like you said, you know, there's teams like Pittsburgh and Washington that it really does seem at this point are in it more so for the ticket sales than the actual end game.
I think that is definitely a difference. Another difference that we get into with that, it's a perfect segue, is the difference between European leagues where you have promotion and demotion versus a closed league like the NHL, AHL, etc., where you, like, if you aren't good, then you can rebuild with young talent, and you can lose 50, 60 games, and it doesn't matter because you get a high draft pick at the end of it, right? If you lose, what is 60 games out of 82? Is that like in percentage wise?
I think the San Jose Sharks lost 50 games in regulation. I think it was 50 to 52 games in regulation.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Like, if you did that in SHL, you'd find yourself in offense, right? Like, you can't get away with that. For one, the fans wouldn't tolerate it.
We had actually a situation like that with Oskarshamn the past season, where they were losing so many games that they I would say by January they were already they could prepare for qualifying to stay up because they were so far behind. Like, you cannot afford to lose that many games. You have to kind of like combine rebuilding with, making sure that you have enough good players to stay up. It's much more difficult, in my opinion, to construct a roster in the SHL if you're trying to rebuild or retool, because one, you have bigger other leagues that are paying better, and LA is one, and then you obviously have the attraction of NHL, AHL. So you're not at the top of the food chain, first of all. Second of all, SHL is only 14 teams, 12 of them stay up, two qualify. Okay.
That's a dog world.
So it's absolutely insane how tight you before every season, the top four teams, but the difference is not that big between the teams. Everyone beats everyone. So you cannot. It's a very risky business trying to rebuild the same way you would in North America. That's probably why I don't know if we've had any other North American sportchef, which is GM, other than the Abbott, what's his name? Because the Abbott brothers was GM and coach for Rögle, and now they got fired after many years, after like 5 years or something. But they built that club to what they achieved, which was 2 finals, I think.
Wow.
2 finals and also a Champions Hockey League gold, so they were champions of Europe at one point. But those are the only, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, those are the only ones that have been from North America and have been in charge of a club, like on a GM level, from North America, because it's so different. It's similar to how I think only Patrick Alvin Patrick Alvin is the only Swedish GM in the NHL, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. He's the first and only Swedish GM in the NHL, and there's a reason for it. It's very, very different. It's a completely different playing field. So, but yeah, that just popped into my head. Like the difference. There's a reason why it doesn't translate that well over. All right, I think we spent a little bit too much time on that, maybe. So, do do you feel comfortable moving on, or do you want to add anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay, so a bit of an introduction to the SHL, right?
Sure.
The SHL started as it was called Elitserien, and started in 1975, and then I think it's 10 years ago that they changed to the SHL, which is Svenska Hockeyligan in Swedish, and the Swedish Hockey League in English, which is a much better, much more modern way of calling a league, because it's more international. It's easier to say for international fans and international other interests. So and yeah, they've been modernizing their. So the way it works, SHL is also kind of a brand, and there are brand deals, but it's not heavily focused on the business side the same way that is in North America. I will say that sometimes that is a problem, but at the same time, it's just a cultural thing. We are more focused on the sport. You need to survive sporting wise to survive as a club. If you cannot survive on the ice, then you are demoted, and that's how it should be. In our opinions, that's how it should be. You should be, if you're not good enough then to stay up, then you should be demoted. That's the gist of it.
And in the NHL, sometimes it pays to suck.
Yeah, like Chicago, they got Connor Bedard, a generational talent out of it. So
yeah, that's right.
So it's teams, right? I'm gonna look at a map so I don't so I don't forget anyone. So from north to south, we have Luleå, Skellefteå, Modo, Timrå, Leksand, Örebro, Färjestad, Linköping, HV71, Frölunda, Oskarshamn, Växjö, Rögle och Malmö. So those are the 14 teams currently in the SHL. Modo played their first season back last year and did well. Oskarshamn is not in the SHL anymore. My bad. The picture has not been updated. Who got promoted then? Hold on. Hockeyallsvenskan. Who got promoted? Brynäs got promoted, of course. That's silly of me. I should have known that. Okay, so Oskarshamn is not in the SHL no more. They got demoted after qualifying, going to 7 games against HV71. And Brynäs got promoted. They won the playoffs in the Hockeyallsvenskan, which is the second tier league. So there's a promotion and a demotion going on there. So yeah.
And I don't think a lot of North American viewers actually do know that.
Mm-hmm. We have a third national tier as well, which is called Hockeyettan. So Ice Hockey Division 1 is what you would translate it to. It's just shortened. But yeah, so let's see. Right, that was the introduction. You wanted to speak about the Kapanen family specifically, right?
Well, I think you know a little bit more about like the family, but I just wanted to share a write-up from the Hockey Writers, because this is probably like the I was trying to find my own words to describe Oliver Kapanen's game, and I'm very excited to watch him play in the SHL this year. But this write-up from the Hockey Writers just gets me very excited as a Habs fan, right? Like this is one of our
he's signed with Montreal Canadiens. Yeah.
This is a write-up from the Hockey Writers. He is a solid two-way center who reads play at a high level. He plays a responsible defensive game, engaging with opposing attackers from the red line down. Kapanen's unique offensive feature is that he's excellent around the net. He has a sneaky shot, excellent hands around the crease, and he's a skilled puck deflector as well.
Mm-hmm.
his offensive upside is underrated, and it will be interesting to see where his NHL production comes from. I think that this is the type of player NHL teams galore just absolutely die for. Probably a third line center, just sneaky good around the net, sneaky defensive skills.
I would honestly say that I could see him sneaking in as a top 6 forward if he gets a jump in his development.
Absolutely.
At least a middle 6 guy who can, like as you said, a third line center who can jump in on the second line when injuries happen and stuff like that. So it's actually interesting. I went to his Elite Prospects page where the Elite Prospects 2021 NHL Draft Guide says here, Kapanen's game is all about his instincts in the offensive zone combined with lethal finishing skills from close and mid-range. He recognizes space well and takes advantage of even the slightest mistakes by the opposing defenses. He has some gravitational elements as a playmaker, being able to draw in pressure before dishing the puck to an open teammate. So yeah, I mean, he is obviously the cousin of Kasperi Kapanen. His uncle is Sami Kapanen. His dad is the GM of Timrå, where he will be playing, Kimmo Kapanen, a former goalie in the SHL. And his great uncle is Jari Kapanen, and his grandfather is Hannu Kapanen. Those I do not recognize, but they are listed on the Elite Prospects page, so I would assume that they have some stellar careers. But yeah, he's played in... Yeah, for sure. He played, the last few years he's played in Liga, full seasons, 55 games, 27 points the first year, and 51 games, 34 points last year. And then he scored 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in 13 playoff games as well this past season. He's a very, I mean, I could totally see him just doing 1 year in the SHL and then move to North America.
He's already signed his entry-level contract. Loan, so I do see him being in North America next year. Not to make this a Habs podcast, but the Laval Rocket are absolutely
they're a little bit
full of young players.
Yeah, they're stacked. Yeah,
they're loaning guys out left and right. They're going to be very young. They're not going to be a very good team probably, but it's still like crazy to see such a big prospect pool that now we have to start loaning guys out. And that's something you brought to my attention, is that's very new, loaning players back to Europe, right?
Yeah, so this is a trend that we've seen ever since COVID happened and NHL players started being loaned to Europe because of COVID shutdowns and whatnot. We kept playing, so they started loaning players over here. And after COVID stopped, or like the restrictions stopped, certain clubs have kept loaning players back to the original clubs where they were drafted from for further development. Especially players who are maybe 1 to 2 years away from being at the level where they can actually make an impact in the AHL or NHL. So, for example, Wahlberg is a great example, right? He was drafted, he played mostly J20, and then he did a fantastic job for us in the men's team, and especially the qualifying games we had that year. And then he was drafted by Buffalo. They sent him back to us for a year. He did great, honestly. He didn't produce a whole lot of points, but that's not... Like here on a big ice, it's difficult to produce that amount like a lot of points to begin with. Because SHL, you have to remember, SHL is a very defensive league. Everyone knows how to play defense very, very well. And yeah, I mean, he did great from my perspective in other parts of the game, except for points production. And then, I mean, obviously, when our season ended early. So he decided to, they decided that he should go to the Americans, which is the AHL affiliate, and get a taste on the small rink, and he didn't disappoint. A lot of Buffalo fans are excited for him, and I'm excited for him as well. So that's just a perfect example of, you get drafted and then you might need another year over here because you're only like 18, right? 17, 18 when you get drafted. So you're not mature enough to move across the Atlantic as well. It's a maturity thing, I think, as well. You might be ready hockey-wise, but you might not be ready off the rink,
One thing that the scouts often say is, you know what? Leave that kid in college, especially with the NCAA. They say this. Leave that kid in college. He's having fun. This is the college life. And I'm starting to think yeah, but that could be said about any junior player.
Yeah.
He's there in Sweden. He's doing well. He's developing his game. He's learning to become a pro, and his friends and family are there. It's a great place to be becoming a man.
Yeah, and you know what? In terms of Badinka, I'm worried a little bit that he moves too quickly. He's not been loaned out as of today. He has not been loaned out to Malmö. So he will most likely play somewhere. I don't know because Carolina doesn't have an AHL affiliate, right? So I don't know where they're gonna place him. But the thing is, he has his twin brother here. He has other people here that are from Czechia who speak Czech. So that's a comfort thing, and then he gets moved to North. I'm a little bit worried about the off rink stuff for him, but I don't know him personally, so I might be completely wrong. I just know that it was a big thing when he moved here from Finland, because he was in Finland originally. When we got him to our junior our J20 team, it was a big thing that he moved with his brother. So and they're twins, right? So they have that special connection and dependency on each other. So it's going to be interesting to see his development because there's plenty of players who go abroad maybe 2 years and then they go back to Europe because they just couldn't figure out the off-rink stuff,
Yeah.
So we'll see. I hope that he does get loaned out to Malmö. It could be that they're waiting for the draft, what's it called, the training camp thing, right? Training camp is in October, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We could be seeing him suit up in Carolina for preseason, and that would be a testament to how
then they regard him very high.
His skills are, but I couldn't agree more. This player should be developing in Europe.
If not here, then in Czechia, where he's comfortable off ice, is where But it's we'll see. We kind of got lost in the pros and cons of. We kind of got lost a little bit. Right. So I was curious about the view of the SHL and European leagues from a North American's perspective. What do you see of the European hockey that you like, that you wish would have been more of in? It might not be able to be implemented because of the small rink. But what do you like? Have you watched the European hockey first of all before?
I have mostly Liga, not really as much SHL.
Okay.
And the one thing, my critique of Liga obviously is the neutral zone trap. That's very old NHL at this point.
Yeah.
That's not really applicable to a lot of SHL at this point. And there are teams in Liga that are actually trying to change this.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, not Koivu's TPS. But there's a lot of teams that are moving toward playing a more offensive style instead of this shutdown defensive thing. But I think for a casual fan, some people might not understand when they see a player like Jacob Wozniak get 50 points in 36 games in the J20, they go, yeah, but you got guys in the CHL putting up 110 points in 60 games. And it's you're learning a 200-foot game first, in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's just like, we believe that the skills come and I can teach the guy to play defense. Do you know what I mean? Like North America, it's like, oh, well, I want to see the skills first. And I don't think that's always right. I think if you want to be a professional hockey player, you need to be a 200-foot player. Like, there's no more Patrick Kanes anymore. There's no more, like, they're not going to have the same success that they did even 10 years ago.
That's an interesting trend with, say, McDavid and now Bedard, is that they're very offensive-minded players who've been taught at the NHL level how to defend as a center. Whereas when you have a Swedish center, I'm going to use what's his name, Ericson Ek.
Sure.
Ericson Ek of the Minnesota Wild. So he's a great example of a player that was picked pretty high, 20th overall to 2015. He he came through the ranks of Färjestad. Only played 34 games, only scored 6 points, right? But he was plus minus 0. Okay, that's important. Right, he's a very, very good two-way player, two-way center, in fact. Second year, he got loaned back, so that's 2015-2016. He scored 15 points, 9 goals, 6 assists in 41 games. He was plus 7.
Wow.
And this is when he's very young. He's 27 now, so you do the math. But this is 2015-2016 season. So he's like what, 20, 19, something like that. And so 19. That's very, very good. And then 2016-2017 was the first year in where he tried. He played 15 games for Minnesota Wild, scored 7 points, 3 goals, 4 assists, 1, so plus minus 1 then. And then he played 1 game for Iowa Wild and scored in that game. So and then he was loaned back to Färjestad and played 26 games, scored 16 points, plus minus was plus 4. And then
there's where you can see the jump in development.
Yeah. So he had 2 years loaned out. And then obviously, so this
only in the last 2 seasons have you really seen this guy take massive leaps at the NHL level.
Yeah, but
all of this time in the SHL, he's been putting up great production, being that 200-foot player. Like, that was the baseline. That was the foundation where he built his game, and I think that actually leaves him ahead of a lot of his peers. That he had that experience and had that pro readiness that you don't really see a lot of the time with North American developed prospects.
What I was going to get to was that these guys take a longer time to put up a lot of points in the NHL. Like, he scored 16 points in 75 games the first full season. So that's not very impressive, right? But he was a plus 2. So defensively, he was pretty solid, right? Second full season, 14 points in 58 games. He was a -7. I don't know what happened that year, but he's not putting up a lot of points. Then we see, especially just before COVID and during COVID, 29 points, 30 points, 49 points, and then the last 2 seasons, 61 points and 64 points, and he's a plus 18 this past year. And then he had a great World Cup. He scored 9 points in 10 games and was a plus 4. So individually, like, these 200-foot players from the SHL and from Europe, they take longer to put up a lot of points. You have to be more patient with them to let them develop. But now that he's reached his peak, and you can see he's a 60-plus point player per year, and you can see this as well. He's only missing like 4 or 5 games a year. 82 game schedule is pretty freaking intense. Like, it's definitely different coming from Sweden you have 52 games a year. You have the most you have is 3 games a week, right?
That's
So,
right. And here you have back-to-backs.
we have back-to-backs as well, but it's not the same. You have a much more intense schedule. A lot of weeks you have 4 games. You're playing every other day. So it's still quite intense. So I'm impressed by his development. He's a great example of these two-way players that take longer to put up the points, but if you have patience, which Minnesota Wild did, which is a good thing. And I mean, he's going to be, for Sweden, he's going to be an important center going forward, for sure. In international cups. Anyway, that was just an example. Let's see. So, anything else you wanted to mention? We were on about Liga. You had watched a little bit of Liga. Are you excited to watch SHL hockey this coming season?
Absolutely, yeah. I think Malmö, especially if they were to get Badinka back, I know that they have, I think you've told me, 9 defensemen. It's a lot. Like, it's going to be a competition, and there's actually a famous football quote from a coach named Rex Ryan, and he says, competition breeds success.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think, depth is never an issue. Having competition, especially on blue line, is never an issue. I think Otto Stenberg is going to be really good here. I think he's going to carve himself out a really good spot for Malmö. And yeah, I'm excited. I want to see them make playoff and do well, go far, be that underdog team. I think they got it, man.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. There's a lot of pieces that are going to have to fall into place. And with that, I thought let's go through the roster. Do you want me to share my screen, or
I actually have a screenshot of the roster that you posted on YouTube here.
You have the screenshot. Okay. So let's start with the goalies, right? So if we go to Marek Langhammer, he's a Czech goalie. He had his previous year he spent in Oskarshamn. He played 25 games, averaged 3.53 goals against average, and had an .875 save percentage and a .518 record. So not very good. But the thing is, right? The team he had in front of him was very, very bad. Okay, so if you go back and look at his numbers, previous year in 2022-2023, he played for Ilves in Liga. He played 40 games, which is starting goalie number, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
He averaged 1.83 goals a game. That's very, very good. That's elite, I would call it.
Elite, yeah.
He had a .924 save percentage on the year. 8 shutouts. 8 shutouts. Now, that is pretty impressive. He had a 23-10-7 record on the season. He then went on to post 2.01 goals against average and .913 save percentage in 9 playoff games. A 6-3 record in the playoffs that year. So, and that's just an example. If you go back and look at KHL, you look at the first year in Ilves, you go back and look at he had some time in Arizona. Arizona was not very good. So I'm not going to put too much emphasis on his numbers there, to be honest with you. But his numbers everywhere else in Europe, other than Oskarshamn, have been very, very good, even elite. He's won was it a silver or bronze medal with Czechia not too long ago. So like he is a national team goaltender, right? He's not a bad goaltender. So I refuse to believe that he will have bad numbers this coming season. Now, of course, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. But we'll get to. I'm gonna explain more why I think he will succeed here. Let's continue. So I think that he will be the starter. He's 30 years of age. He's 6'2", 194 pounds. He catches left. Let's move on here to Daniel Malmö. He's been in the club a few years, and he's been posting okay numbers. This past season, despite the numbers, I was quite disappointed in him. But I guess the team wasn't helping enough on the defense either. It's a bit of a difficult judging goalie numbers because it's so tied in with the defense, right?
It's always a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. So Daniel Malmö, he posted 28 games, 2.70 goals against average, and a .902 save percentage. Now that looks fine, right? That looks okay. He had four shutouts on the year, but he had a 917 record. That's the problem. And a lot of those, I don't know if it's just me being cynical or what, but it felt like it was too easy goals going in. So I really hope he has a bounce back year. The fact is, his best season was his first year when he played more than he should have, in my opinion, because he came in 2021. He played 31 games, which is the most he's played since he came here. 241 goals against average, 905 save percentage. So he's just over 900 basically every year. So in my mind, he is a decent backup, but he is not a starting goaltender in the SHL. If he goes back to Hockeyallsvenskan, which is the second tier, he would be a starter for sure. And that's why we picked him up, because the year before we picked him up, he had a 924 save percentage on the year and 203 goals against average over 38 games in the second tier. So he was very, very good for Västervik at the time. So we do have a good tandem. It's just about getting a good defense in front of them. Now, why I think we'll have a better defense is because we've recruited a new assistant coach responsible for the defensive side of things. So he's responsible for defensive structure and the PK. And his name is Bert Robertson. He, as a player, he was a tough guy. He played a little bit in the North American leagues. I don't remember exactly where, but his record as a coach is very, very good. He had a long tenure in Skellefteå, where they won 2 championships or 3, like a lot of championships. Like, he knows how to set up a team to win.
Very underrated.
Yeah, for sure. So with him setting up the defensive structure, I think that we'll have a better defense in front of our goalies, which will make our goalies look a little bit better. And I think we've done some solid recruitments. We lost our number 1 defender last year. He got bought out, which is not a very common thing over here, but he got bought out by Färjestad. But we've recruited Lasse Thompson from the Ottawa Senators organization. We've recruited Robin Salo from the New York Islanders organization. And we have Teemu Kivihalme, Jakob Galvas, who was in the Chicago organization. And Badinka is currently on the roster according to Elite Prospects, but I don't think that is accurate. I think that's not been updated. So other than that, we have a few new recruits from. Well, we have Josef Berger, who played for Mura last year in the second tier. He did very well. He's only 24 years old. A lot of these guys are early to mid 20s. So there's still space to grow. Another guy that we recruited was Hugo Jonasson. He's only 20 years old. He played for Oskarshamn this past year, and he did very well for them individually. they clearly see some potential there. And then we have Teemu Kivihalme. He did very well, but he got a season-ending injury. He was gone for 3 months out of the year, unfortunately. And it was actually a freak accident with the referee. So he should never have been, like, that kind of injury is just, you cannot prepare or prevent it from happening. It's just a freak accident, you know. So we'll be very happy to get him back, and with a full summer training, he will be better for sure. And he was already very good at the start of last season, so he was definitely a positive. Other than that, we lost a few middling players. We lost Janne Kokkanen and Lauri Pajuniemi, two of our star players, to the major two players that were part of the reason why we stayed up last year. And we were really close to going to the playoffs as well. Now we lost them, but we've replaced with some good players. Henrik Happala, Robin Hansel, Joona Ikonen. And then we've spiced it up with a few younger players, Linus Öberg, Peter Westerheim, and Otto Stenberg, as you know. And then we've also gotten Nikola Pasic. Now, there are a lot of new players. I will say that. That's a slight negative. Like, if you switch out eight players every year, it's going to have an effect on team building. So they need to stick with this a little bit, like, over the year, over this year. Like, even if things don't work out this year, if we can keep, like, the majority, like, maybe switch out 2 or 3 players, but, like, keep majority of these players, then I can see us going farther next year after this coming season because of that. But I do hope that Otto Stenberg get a breakout year. Peter Westerheim is a very talented center. Have you reviewed him at all?
No, I don't think I actually have.
I will send a link to you so you can see his prospect page. So he's 19 years of age. He's not drafted, but he did play with a draftee who is he's a defensive center, playmaker, two-way center. He's very, very good. He hasn't played on the SHL level yet, so it might take a little bit of time. He's only 19 years of age as well, so he's very young. It could be that they play him in J20. I don't think that's why he's come here, but we'll see. But yeah, he did very well in Hockeyallsvenskan. He played 40 games and scored 17 points. So, and in Mura he played with what's his name, the draftee who was taken like top 10. Oh, from Norway also. The name escapes me. Let's see.
Michael Branteg-Nugard?
Branteg, yep. Yeah, exactly. That's the guy that I was thinking about. So he was paired with him last year in Mura, and they played very well together. So Branteg-Nugard went to Skellefteå this year. He will be playing with Skellefteå, and Peter Westerheim goes to us, and he's undrafted, and I don't know, but I think it's because he's a little bit of an unknown. He's 5'11", 172 pounds. Maybe doesn't put up as many points as other players do. He only scored 17 points in 40 games. I mean, it's still half a point a game almost, so it's not like it's super bad. He's only 19. He was 18 at the time. But I guess he was not drafted because of different things. But maybe he will join NHL one day as a free agent.
Absolutely possible, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of players who slip through the cracks. They're, DY year, but we're seeing it more and more. There's way more players being drafted out of Europe and North America at 19 or 20. So So lots of time for him to get here.
Yeah, yeah. I have really high hopes for this year's Malmö team. It's very young. If you look at the roster, its average age is 25.33 years. We don't have many players over 30. It's two players are 30 now. 4 players are 30 now, and one is 35. The rest are 20 in their 20s. So it's
a very young club.
It's a very, very young team. So it's like it's going to take a bit of time. But yeah, I mean, what else do we want to touch up on? Just so I don't remember. Yeah, Otto Stenberg. You mentioned him a little bit. Anything else you want to add to that conversation?
I do think like Doug Armstrong in St. Louis, he's very good at drafting organizational fit. He doesn't. A guy I don't really want to throw under the bus, but I will here. Kyle Dubas is a great analyst of hockey talent. Like, you can see, he's not just drafting out of nowhere, but he's not drafting based on organizational fits and needs.
Yeah.
And I still believe, even after a rough season in Frölunda, that Otto Stenberg has something St. Louis is really looking for. And it might be that he carves himself out a middle six role in St. Louis one day. But, I mean, a year ago, this was the third best prospect coming out of Sweden.
Yeah.
I really think the ceiling is quite high. But this is it. Like, he needs to show really, really well this year in Malmö, and I believe he will. I honestly believe you guys are going to be big Otto Stenberg fans by the end of the season.
So let's review here. So he was drafted to 2023, round 1, number 25 overall by St. Louis. He's an offensive forward, playmaker, sniper. He's an offensive player, basically. He's very well-rounded offensively. The draft guide says, a dexterous, creative, hip pocket handler with soft touch, Stenberg regularly broke down and dangled past opponents in space, never shying away from an opportunity to put a defender in the spin cycle. Off the rush, he attacks inside, cuts laterally, and tries to manipulate. On the boards, he establishes body position, pushes against opponents with his back and his outside edge, and keeps possession. So he's very good at keeping possession and protecting the puck. He's very good at dangling. I mean, he's an exciting player based on that description alone. And then the problem I see is that when he's been playing outside of the J20, so let's look at some numbers here. So he played 23 games for Frölunda in 2022-2023. That's when he first broke out. He had 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in those 23 games. Not very good, but you will have to consider that was 2 years ago now. So he's 19 now, and that was 2 years ago. So he was 17 at the time. And then he came back. He played for Frölunda last year, 31 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. Better production, but still pretty low for a offensive forward. Mostly, I think that is because he was simply put in a hole. Like, Frölunda has a much bigger, like a better roster in terms of like the top 6. So there was no space to put him in the top 6 nor on the power play. He got loaned out at the end of the season to BIK Karlskoga in Hockeyallsvenskan. 9 games, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. And then he had a stellar qualification. They call it qualification here, but basically it's the second tier playoffs. Basically, they played 12 games, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points in 12 games. That's pretty okay. That's over a half a point a game, and he's still 18. So he did okay on the second tier level, but on the in the SHL, he hasn't really impressed yet. But what I hope is going to happen is he get third line minutes, and then he gets put on the first power play. Now that's a little bit steep, maybe, but also, so let's say second power play, and then if he does well, he moves up, because he is an offensive forward. We need to use him where he does best. Yeah, to get the best out of him, to get the most out of him. And clearly, St. Louis decided that, okay, we cannot loan him back to Frölunda. There's no space there on the top 6 on the power play. So we need to look around for another option. And our GM did a very good job, and they decided to send him to us in Malmö. And I'm very excited for that, to be honest with you. Because... Yeah, go on.
I just think like Doug Armstrong, as well as Malmö's GM, like they can see this player, they can see that he's struggling, and they've put him in a position now to succeed. It is a make or break for Otto Stenberg. Like,
yeah,
I absolutely feel for the kid. You know what? Like, the pressure is certainly mounting, but St. Louis as an organization is very smart. I believe in this kid. I really do. I think by the end of this year, we're all going to be saying, wow, what a turnaround.
Yeah. Hopefully, I would expect... I mean, it's hard to put a point total on a 19-year-old, but I will still say I would expect him to score like 30 points in a full season. Like, that is slightly above half a point a game.
Yep.
I think that is reasonable considering he would be on the power play. Like between 25 and 30 points in 52 games. That should be where he should be at. If you look at his junior numbers, if you look at his second tier men's league numbers, they're very good. It's just that he needs to break through on the SHL level, and it's difficult. It is difficult as an offensive forward to do that. But when you do it, you show your true caliber, and that is going to give him a big jump to North America if he does succeed.
For sure it will.
So, it's quite interesting that. Okay, so we gone through Otto Stenberg. Anything else you want to... Oh, yeah, the draft eligibles that you were talking about. Did you want to do a quick rundown of those?
So, yeah, I just wanted to do a quick little synopsis of some of like the high-end Swedish prospects we're looking at this year, or SHL prospects, J20 prospects that we're going to be seeing this year. Last year was very uncommon to see no Swedes drafted in the first round. 2 Norwegians and no Swedes. It's like, what's happening? But this year, you're going to see an absolute resurgence of Swedish talent in the first round. My bold prediction would be 4 in the top 10, honestly, and probably second overall. And that's where I'll start. Anton Frondell, my consensus second overall pick. Frondell's a dynamic forward who I have no doubt will be a high pick in the 2025 NHL draft. He honestly reminds me a lot of Leo Carlsson, despite maybe being a bit smaller. Great hands, amazing vision. This is a player who plays chess and not checkers. That's something that was said a lot when Carlsson was picked over Adam Fantilli. Like, Adam Fantilli is tremendous, prospect and everything, but Leo is a chess player when he plays hockey. His scanning, vision, it's already not at an NHL level, but at an elite level. I can see Anton Frondell's upside being the best Swedish forward since Leo 2 years ago, and before him, Pettersson.
That same kind of center.
Very dynamic, high-end forward. So I should probably say this, like, when we do these in the future, I'm going to be your draft eligibles guy. Like, I'm always focused on the next draft.
We'll keep a bit of an eye on the draft eligibles as we go through the coming season, and we'll review let's say a halfway review and then an end of season review of these guys that
Sure.
are draft eligibles next year. Let's go move on from Anton Frundell. Who else were you looking at?
So there's a kid born in Australia. He's a Swedish nationality though. Jacob Ease Wozniak. Jacob had 50 points in 36 games at the J20 level, which is just amazing production. He beat Philip Forsberg's goals record at the J20. Elite Prospects has him listed as a 6'3", 185-pound winger with a super sniper and power play specialist player types or prototype, I guess. I can see this player becoming a true power play demon in the NHL. Like, he can shoot off his back foot, front foot, off balance. He's probably the most dynamic shooter since like Mitch Calvert-Bernard. Honestly, man, like this guy's shooting is just elite. Right?
I would say Lekkerimäki is kind of in that category as well, but maybe a little bit lower, but still, like, Lekkerimäki, no less in SHL, was a very, very dynamic shooter. He could score from anywhere on the ice, pretty much. So, but yeah. Okay.
Next, I have Philip Ekberg. He's a much smaller winger than these other guys, and like, despite no GM ever admitting it, size matters in this league. Like, it's one of the most important things you need to play in North America. But either way, windy out here. Ekberg is a comfortable one-touch shooter. He has very crafty hands, and he's creative both on the puck as a passer and a shooter. He is very small, but the fact that he's so good at creating is certainly something NHL teams look for.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you Islanders because you have nobody like that. So
yeah, maybe Islanders will pick him up.
I see this kid as a first round talent. Might be a second rounder. And then the absolute wild card of SHL right now. I mean, this kid's going to be playing in SHL at 17, draft year, right-hand defenseman Luka. I'm going to brutalize his name. Radivojevic. Again.
Radivojevic, I think.
Radivojevic. Okay.
Hold on. Let me check. Oh, I don't have that on the list. Could you? I can't find him now. Oh, there we go. Radivojevic.
Okay.
Yeah, Luka Radivojevic. He's a American and Slovakian passport on him.
Okay.
So born in Minnesota, no less. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting, and especially being a right-hand defenseman, I have to look. But he kind of reminds me of like Lane Hudson a little bit. I don't know if you know who that is, but like, he's gonna be playing in the SHL his draft year. That's very that's crazy.
That's unique. Yep, it doesn't happen and doesn't happen very often.
No, and he's undersized. I wouldn't say like he's an explosive skater, but his lateral movement is already elite. He has excellent edges and adjustability, which helps him handle and hold on to pucks long enough so that he can use his game and hockey smarts to execute plays. His size and explosiveness make his projectability hard to read. But I can't wait to see him at Örebro. Like, I think that this player could be top 10 pick if all goes right. I mean, playing at the pro level, offensive right-hand defenseman, great edges. Like, yeah, that's something to look for.
Definitely going to be a threat, So someone to keep watch on. The one thing that I noticed is that he played 6 games last year for the men's team and didn't score a single point. I don't know. That could be because of no ice time, because he doesn't have any penalty minutes or any plus minus at all either.
He may have been playing 5-6 there, but
Yeah. He did score 33 points in 43 games in the J20 National League, which is very good for a defenseman. It's very, very good.
He was above that at that point, right? So I have no issue with the team showing a kid, like, even for 6 games, like you said.
Yeah, he got a taste of
this is
it.
the level you'll have to be next season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well,
one more thing. Just some SHL'ers and Swedish players poised to make their NHL debuts this year.
oh yeah, I want to mention some that you might not have. Were you going to mention Jere Innala?
I was not.
Okay, so let's take a look at him first. So he was picked up by Colorado Avalanche as a free agent. He's 26 years of age. He's been playing for Frölunda 2 years in a row now. Scored 26 and 28 points. The difference was that he didn't play a full season this past season. He played 42 games. He was injured, but he had more points than the year before. And he scored 6 more goals. He was an absolute menace of a goal scorer. So that was good enough for Colorado Avalanche to take a look at him. And then we also have Marcus Sylvegård, who had a stellar year with Växjö, who was picked up by St. Louis Blues. He scored 41 points and 23 goals in 51 games with Växjö. So he is a goal scorer, definitely. Almost a goal every other game. That is pretty crazy. And he had 18 assists as well. So he's not a bad passer either. He's poised to be playing in the Springfield Thunderbirds in the AHL this year, according to Elite Prospects. But I wouldn't be surprised if he, because he is signed with St. Louis Blues, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him step in for a few games, maybe in the NHL level as well. That's going to be interesting. Anyway, those were the two that I was thinking about. Do you have any others you want to add?
I do believe Lekkerimäki. This will be his.
Lekkerimäki, right? Yeah.
I think this is going to be his NHL debut this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vancouver honestly could use it. That they've lost a few players, and his draft plus one. Everyone was talking, bust category, and then he just absolutely blew that out of the water. He's been just. He is what he is.
He's not a bust, not at all, in my opinion. But he needs to be well handled. According to Elite Prospects, he's poised to be playing for Abbotsford in the AHL, and considering that he only had 6 games with Abbotsford at the end of last season, I think that is a good idea to give him a season in the AHL before lifting him up. But he could see his debut, like you said, during the season. He could see his debut in the NHL level, which would be quite interesting. I would definitely want to tune in for that. The problem with Vancouver is that it's 9 hours behind, so it's like almost morning the next day. Yeah, it's impossible pretty much unless it's a weekend. But yeah, if you get news of him making his debut for Vancouver, will be trying to watch that game for sure. That would be interesting. Any other ones?
Next I have is Jesper Wallstedt.
I
can see him being Minnesota's starting goaltender.
Okay.
Day one. I think it's going to be him and Fleury. I think Philip Gustafsson is actively being traded or shopped.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's any slight on him. 2 years ago, he was a Vezina candidate. He's a very good goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, so is Wallstedt, right? This is a guy who, he deserved where he was drafted. He's been developing well in Iowa. It's his time now. We're seeing guys like Askarov be blocked, and I don't think Bill Guerin and Minnesota are going to make the same mistake Nashville's making with Askarov, and I think this kid easily could become one of the premier goalies in the NHL.
Bro, I remember in 2020-2021 season when he got brought up from the J20 to the men's team in Luleå. He played 22 games, 223 goals against average, 908 save percentage, 2 shutouts. That's his debut season where he played more than one game. He had one game in the SHL the year before in 1920 season, 155 goals against average, 944 save percentage. That was just one game though, and that was in a loss too. So, and that must have been an overtime loss, I think, because how do you have 155? Yeah, it must have been an overtime loss. But anyway, he's had stellar numbers at the SHL level, and then he went to Iowa, and he didn't I mean, 908 save percentage in 38 games. I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's great, but it's not bad. And then he had even more games this past year. 910 save percentage, 270 goals against average for Iowa Wild in 45 games. 2 shutouts, 22-19 for record. Honestly, I think he is the best bet. In my opinion, Wahlstedt has the higher ceiling between Philip Gustafsson and Wahlstedt, but both are great goalies.
Both are great. Like, I'm not trying to be here, tearing down Philip Gustafsson. He played for my Ottawa Senators and was very good. It's very typical of the Senators to trade him away after that. But I can easily see Wahlstedt becoming one of those, base of the NHL type goalies. So. Anyway, next I have a couple Habs prospects, of course. Emil Heineman.
Emil Heineman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's played in Laval and had some struggles. Similar to a player you were talking about earlier, he had a freak injury involving a ref.
Oh, really?
Pretty severe concussion. And that really hindered his development this year. He was headed in such a good direction.
Yeah.
And he's also a player who I think benefits being on the smaller ice.
Yeah.
He's a north-south skater, physical, loves to shoot. This is a guy. I mean, Montreal hasn't made really any additions this free agency. I would not be surprised to see this guy make the Habs out of camp.
Okay.
I really do believe that. Like, he's been in like 3 or 4 NHL games now. Didn't really get much opportunity in those games, mind you.
He was a plus 2 over those 4 games, so it didn't.
That's right.
It wasn't a defensive liability, at least. That's always something.
No, and a great skater. Sometimes you could see that he's still adjusting to North American ice. He'd find himself, overskating himself into a corner, or, very, very common mistakes for any European player coming over to North America, right?
Yeah. It takes some time.
His first couple games in the AHL, like, you could just see the shot, see the talent. Yeah, I believe this guy could be a perfect line mate for Kirby Dach this year. Now, I don't think he's going to be a Calder winner, like if he could get 10 goals, 30 points or something, that would be amazing. Like, I really believe that could happen. And then, you're going to not like this, Adam Engstrom. I know he played for the other guys over there. I shouldn't be too many praises,
yeah. Let's look at him as well. Yep.
I know you're not a huge fan of him, but he's gone now, so you can't hate him as much anymore, right?
Yeah.
He's going to be making his Laval Rocket debut, and this is a player who's very comfortable on the right side despite being a left shooter. I could see him playing at least 3-4 in Laval this year. Might even earn himself a call-up. Like, there's people within Montreal's organization saying, of all of our young defensemen, he's one of the most pro-ready.
Yep.
So, yeah, like, I'm very excited to see both of those guys play this year, and hopefully at least one of them can make their NHL debut. But if not, both will be in Laval, and they're ready. They're ready to play here.
That's very cool. I mean, we are, at least a while ago, I saw a stat. So for the NHL, outside of North American players, Sweden is where the most exported players come from. by far in numbers, by far. Like Finland is not even close to the amount of players that we export every year to the NHL. And then after Finland, it's like Czechia, Germany. I don't even Switzerland export that many Swiss players, honestly. Like, can you name anyone else in Roman Josi and I don't even know who else.
Nico Hischier.
Okay. Yeah, 3 players. But I mean, you can count them on one hand, right?
Yeah, Timo Meier, like Pius Suter.
I think Timo Meier is in. Hold on, Timo. Is he? Oh, he is Swiss. Okay.
Right. You've got Philip Kurashev.
Yeah, is Kurashev not an AHLer at this point? Is Kurashev actually an NHLer?
Yeah, he plays for Chicago.
Well, that is basically an AHL team.
For a 25-year-old playing on a team like that, though, he had very good production. I believe he was their second or third leading scorer this year.
54 points is not that bad. Negative 44 is just really telling, though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But
Chicago's not.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough situation, but hey.
Switzerland finally does have a goaltender in Akira Schmid.
Yeah. I've heard of him. He's pretty decent. Yeah.
Yeah. He did well in the playoffs against New York Rangers. I think that's where a lot of his hype comes from.
I think the thing is that European hockey is developing like to other nations. So let's say Germany is getting much better. Denmark is getting much better. Norway is producing prospects. Okay.
Yeah.
Norway for a long time only had one NHLer.
Mats Zuccarello.
Exactly. Now they will have, most likely, Brans Nygaard will be an NHLer one day. Maybe Vesterheim will follow suit, but he's maybe slower to develop.
The Danish hockey program's producing a lot more talent.
Yep, Nikolai Ehlers is an example. I don't know if you know this, but Frans Nielsen, who was a prominent player in the New York Islanders and then Detroit Red Wings, he's from he played in Denmark and then he moved over to Malmö early 2000s. He played for our junior category. Do you want to know what he scored in the junior category?
In the was it J20?
Yeah. J20 Super Elite was what it was called back then. 29 games, okay? 15 goals, 27 assists, 42 points. Okay? He absolutely fucking obliterated that league at the time. And that was also why he played 20 games in the men's league that season as well. That was his first season in Sweden. He was quickly moved up. And then he had but here's a great example of a player that didn't produce many points over here, and then he produced really good numbers on the small rink. Yeah. So if you look at his numbers, he produced 16 points, 15 points, 18 points over here. Then he went to New York Islanders and the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, 44 points in 54 games in the AHL, right? 38 points in 48 games in 2007-2008. And then when he finally got his break on the NHL level, he produced 33 points in 59 games. And then he just skyrocketed from there. He got the A on his chest, alternate captain, 44 points, in 71 games. You know, like he was a consistent 40, 45, 50 point player for a while there. And then he obviously dropped off, but you know, he's a great example of a European player that doesn't produce much on big ice, and then comes over and he does very, very well. Very smart player. But yeah, he was going through the J18 and J20 over here.
Maybe one of the best Danish players of all time.
Maybe. I mean, probably. If you don't go by position, I would say Fredrik Andersen.
Yeah.
Is the best Danish player overall, but out of the skaters, I would say Fals Nilsson or Nikolai Elos.
Yeah. Lars Eller won a Stanley Cup, so.
Oh yeah, his brother. No, that's not his brother. Hold on. Lars Eller. Yeah. Lars Eller is a champion. Yeah, he won a Stanley Cup. So, all nations, like there's several nations that you can tell are getting better on a national level. So, and that is very good. And in Malmö, we have such close proximity to Denmark, so we're trying to get Danish talent into our system, to cultivate them, to produce them, to give them the chance to become NHL'ers eventually.
For sure.
So yeah, I think that is it for this one.
Awesome.
We've gone on for over an hour and 15 minutes. That's pretty decent amount of time, I would say, for a pilot episode. I hope you guys watched and enjoyed and listened to us. And we kept yapping for over an hour here. I'm very grateful for all of you who listened to this full podcast episode, and I think the plan is to release this on the Sunday. Yeah, on Sunday will be our release day for this coming season. Hopefully every week we can make a 30-40 minute episode just going over the week's games and stuff like that, and discuss a little bit of prospects, how they're doing in their development and whatnot. And yeah, it will be an exciting time if we get this off the ground. So thank you so much, and thank you to my co-host from Canada. Where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Ottawa.
You're in Ottawa, right? Ottawa, that's Ontario, correct?
Yep, nation's capital.
Nation's capital, right? Okay,
Yeah.
All right. Well, see you guys, and have a good day. Bye for now.
Take it easy, viewers, and we'll see you next time.